to make it look like everything's normal and like they didn't just toss us after 56 years. You know, they pride themselves on their traditional values.
What's disappointing to me is that the whole about face after the logo, people are like, all right, we'll back off them, like they made the right decision. And in some ways they probably did, but it sounds like there's a lot of deep-rooted issues that are beneath the surface of just a logo or, you know, we're redesigning a dining room that mean that the brand is not what it used to be.
My family started with Cracker Barrel on day one.
As saddening as this whole thing has been, I'm glad that we stuck to our guns and we didn't cave to woke pressure.
Cracker Barrel was founded as the Southern comfort food go-to in Lebanon, Tennessee, the old country general store that was built on American values and represented the charm of the local history of the area. But underneath the rocking chairs and behind the checkered curtains, something's changed. The company has sold out its roots for woke ideology, soulless leadership, and a retail store filled with products that aren't even made in America anymore. What happens when companies go woke? Well, Cracker Barrel is showing us it's not pretty. Joining me now to expose what Cracker Barrel doesn't want you to know are President and Vice President of Qualls & Son Novelties, the former suppliers of the famous Cracker Barrel peg game, Alex and Andrea Kraft. Alex and Andrea, it's great to have you guys. I'm really looking forward to what you have to share with my audience, you know, how this all came to be, just to give my audience a little backstory here. Before we got all the logo changes and all the stuff that's happened in the last, month and a half, flashback, I think it was maybe a year ago, maybe even longer than that. I'm not sure the exact timeline, but it was just at the airport and you flagged for me, hey, listen, there's actually a lot more to Cracker Barrel than people think. And at that time, nobody was talking about that. Nobody was saying like Cracker Barrel is woke. Nobody is saying like, oh, they've sold out their values. That wasn't something that was at the front of mind for Americans. There was not this controversy, but it was still going on. So that's why I think it's so important to hear your story and pull back the layers of the onion here. What the heck is going on? And with this whole about face from Cracker Barrel going back to the old logo, if you guys think that that's actually a return to form or not. I'm really curious to know your take on all of it. So I will just wind you up and let you go.
Okay. Do you want to start?
Sure. Well, thanks first and foremost for having us and, just giving us the platform to let our voices be heard. We're thankful for this opportunity and, we just want to tell our story and how much they've truly changed. Stemming back to 2020, whenever COVID happened, we definitely felt that hard left shift, if you will. The closure happened. The world went crazy. We had to close our doors for 6 months at a time. And during that whole event, we had zero cash flow at all. And whenever we reopened, of course, you probably remember being in the Nashville area also, how crazy the restrictions were at that time. So I was going in by myself, doing everything start to finish, from cutting it into the triangle, drill, stamp it, deliver, making all the arrangements with all the higher ups there. And, it was tough to regroup after that happened because we were moving at a good pace. In the beginning, we had good inventory in the warehouse. And then when they reopened, our inventory was immediately depleted because they were trying to make up for that lost time. And again, with all the crazy restrictions, it was hard to really bounce back just for the cost of goods, the cost of labor. Everything was just really expensive. They knew that we were the little man and they knew that we were their only customer. So they kind of called the shots in a sense.
So
they paid us when they felt like paying us.
I just want to go back a little bit so people know the backstory. How long has your family been making the peg game for Cracker Barrel, or how long had they been making the game for Cracker Barrel?
So my family started with Cracker Barrel on day one. The first day that Cracker Barrel was open, our games were on their tables. My grandfather, Ollie Qualls, was friends with the founder, Danny Evans. So so you'll see here, that's my grandfather up top and my grandmother, Sue, on the bottom. So they started with Cracker Barrel, like I said, on day one. It was cool. They got together and they decided that it would be neat to put a game on the table. So my grandfather and my dad, Adrian Qualls, they all got together and came up with this idea and put that on the tables. So yeah, we've been with Cracker Barrel since day one. In fact, I would like to point out too that Cracker Barrel actually said this quite often in their social media references, were like on their Instagram for their 50th anniversary in 2019. That was the year that we took over the business, Alex and I. And they came in and did like a whole social media workup. That was their idea. They wanted to come in and celebrate their 50th anniversary and really glorified the fact that they were so loyal to their vendors, and giving us reason to believe that we had a good relationship at that time.
So that's 2019. So then we kind of go into what
Yes.
Alex was talking about. 2020 hits, things shut down. Of course, the restaurants themselves had to shut down. So production kind of went at a standstill because the demand wasn't, what it was when you got a lockdown. And then they're reopening and then they're like, all right, we need all this stuff. But you're like, I can't even get my workforce in here because of these restrictions. So then they started toying with you just on the production side. So it wasn't necessarily out of wokeness or anything like that. It was just, you guys were dealing with these crazy demands and then trying to juggle it with all the stupid restrictions of COVID. So that kind of brings us where we are in the story. So it started like initially it was like more of a production logistics issue, but then it kind of added a little more from what I've heard from you.
Yes, that's correct. That is correct. So basically, we were just talking about this timeline. So in around 21, things started to feel different. We were trying to communicate to them like, hey, we want to make money again. We know you want to make more money again. Let's get these sales up and come up with an idea on how we can do that. Well, we were getting paid like at a net 60. And we said, given the needs of the business, trying to get our inventory built back up so we could fulfill these big orders, we said, well, can we get paid on delivery? I think that would really help matters and help us get back into a good place. And we had a couple of allies at that time, like a couple of people up there that were good people who genuinely cared.
They stuck to the old Cracker Barrel model.
Yeah, the old traditional ways and just doing good business, honestly. And then after a while, they had agreed. They agreed to do that. But then it didn't really happen. It happened maybe a number of times that we got paid on delivery. And so we're trying to reach these people who had helped us, and they fell off the wagon too. And then it was like, what is going on over here? We couldn't get a hold of anybody for weeks at a time sometimes. We felt like we were constantly chasing money, which why?
Well, tell me about, too, how some of the wokeness kind of crept in there with the peg game itself. What conversations were had about, the style of the game, the language on the game? What were those conversations like?
So I first started noticing that it was not long after everything reopened after COVID. They came up with this idea for the world's smallest peg game, and they were making miniature, variations of like the checker games and a few odds and ends in the retail store, that they wanted to do the world's smallest version. And they wanted to do that with the peg game also. And they kind of saw that as a new opportunity to kind of revamp the product. And they had mentioned to us at that time that they're thinking about revising the text on there. And we were firm in putting our foot down because the wordage on the game was the same as it was since 1969. It was all by her grandfather. That's what made Qualls and Son Novelties what it is. So we weren't willing to bend on that. So we stuck to our guns, and that kind of got.
What words were they? What words or what themes were they worried about?
So on line 3, it says if you leave 3 or more pegs, you're pretty dumb. They didn't like the name calling. Pretty dumb, excuse me.
Plain dumb, yeah.
Yep. And line 4 says, if you leave 4 or more pegs, you're an ignoramus. I think now it says something ridiculous like, if you leave 4 or more pegs, don't be embarrassed, just try again.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So they were worried
So they
about.
may as well start putting a participation award inside each bag unit.
Oh, yeah. You know, when you say like offensive and irrelevant nature of the language, you know, people are thinking like, wow, you must have had, you know, the F word on there or something, or like it must have been pretty bad. But it's just like, oh no, you're dumb, or you're an ignoramus. Oh, okay. Well, you know, it's a game. But I guess 2020 was a real stupid year. You had COVID. You had the summer of love for George Floyd, of course, where I guess calling people dumb is offensive, but burning down Target isn't. That's interesting the way that works. So you held your ground on that. How did that impact your business?
That kind of got the wheels turning. Like I felt something was up, you know, with the liberal hard shift there. So they didn't try to poke the bear too much. They left it alone. And then fast forward to 25, I get called into a meeting and they told me granted, this was called a touch base meeting, mind you. I thought it was a regrouping moment. And they said that they were just going to cut to the chase. They said that our wording is no longer relevant and slightly offensive. And they found another supplier to start producing for the retail side, which was the bulk of our bottom line. And without that side of our business, we were sunk immediately.
So this has happened recently.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. So how does this coincide with the rebranding? Because this rebranding was maybe 3 weeks ago, not even a month ago, that they rolled out the new logo. They were so proud of it. They took, you know, they basically sanitized it and made it just a more boring version, taking out all the Southern charm and appeal. That was like their big rebrand. But how did that and that team, did that overlap at all with what they did to you guys? Was it the same people in charge calling those shots, or was it a different part of that entity that decided that, you know, you guys were no longer in vogue for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was just kind of laying out the groundwork for the direction they were headed. Even in that same meeting, they wouldn't tell me what the wording was going to be changed to, but they just wanted to force our hand at it. If we wanted to move forward with them, our product has to be revised, or that's it.
Wow. And so what was your response to that?
You know, it was a heartbreaking moment, you know, for 3 generations of hard work. And, you know, it wasn't just a family business. It was our legacy.
Right.
You know, we had planned on taking care of it and, you know, continuing to build it and passing it down to our kids. But that dream came to a screeching halt with the direction they wanted to head as a company. But, you know, even with that, as saddening as this whole thing has been, I'm glad that we stuck to our guns as far as like what Qualls and Son Novelties is as a brand. And we didn't cave to woke pressure.
Right.
Like they did.
So it's interesting because, you know, the company took a lot of heat for changing the logo, and people are like, don't do this. This is dumb. And then they did a real about face. And they're like, all right, you're right. We're going to put it back. And, you know, it seemed like all is well. It seemed like, okay, well, we changed the logo back. Like, don't worry, guys. We're not woke anymore, or we're not, you know, we're not modern anymore. We're going back to the old way. A recent press release said some things are not going away, like the rockers or the peg game. Like, they're really trying to say, hey guys, don't worry, like we tried to do something fun and new and we're not doing that anymore. But you're telling me that that's not necessarily the reality.
Right, exactly. They are coming out to make it look like everything's normal and like they didn't just toss us after 56 years. I mean, you know, they pride themselves on, you know, their traditional values and their vintage Americana is how they put it. Which I don't know about you, but I think like tossing out your oldest vendor 56 years since day one, as they like to say, you know, it doesn't really scream loyalty.
So who's making the peg game for them now? Do you know?
There is a company in Georgia who assembles them. That is what the box says. The box that they arrived to Cracker Barrel in says that they are assembled in Georgia. And from what I understand, that means that they were not made in the United States. Now, you can't quote me on that. I don't know that for sure, but it sure looks like that's what that means. I looked it up actually. So
Wow.
it supposedly means that they're going overseas to get their pet game, save a buck.
Yeah, I'm sure that probably has something to do with it too. There's also been some deep dives done by independent journalists, especially based here in Tennessee, on beyond just the logo, like some of the other woke things happening behind the scenes, the employee pronouns and the this and the woke and the LGBTQ and all the DEI and all that stuff that was so commonplace, certainly from 2020 to 2024. I mean, every company, it seems like every company adopted that. They were all in on the woke, right? So there was more under the surface of Cracker Barrel than just the logo and just the pay game. Like they were actually undercover. Felt like somebody kind of hijacked that brand and decided they were going to be a woke brand. What insight can you give us on what you saw or what you noticed as a family that's been working with them for 50 plus years? Were there other things beyond just the woke language changes they wanted to make that you noticed in leadership?
Well, they started just dropping all these subtleties, like, thinking back to 21, 22, somewhere around then, when Pride Month was coming around the corner, they advertised it with rainbow rockers on their front porch. And right then we knew this isn't headed in a good direction. And I don't know if this is going to necessarily give us job security with the direction they want to go with it all.
Right. Well, and I'm sure that you probably didn't have direct communication with the head honchos. Maybe you did, I don't know. But, the change from, Andrea, when your family had been running this and all this and the people that they were dealing with, you'd mentioned that, there's going to be change in leadership. Of course, we know it's a huge company. There's going to be changes in leadership. We all know that happens for better or for worse. But, in terms of who took over and these outside branding companies that they bring in, how much of that do you think changed Cracker Barrel? Like, is there people that you could identify that's like, oh nope, they took out this guy and they brought in the woke green hair with the septum piercing? Like, is there any feeling of that you started to notice as far as the people you were dealing with?
Yeah, for sure. Specifically, well, I'm not saying names, but the pet game buyer. The person who had that position before no longer obviously had that position, and they brought someone in, and it just felt like everything shifted. Everything. From there on out, any communication that we had with them, which we didn't have much, we could never seem to get a hold of anybody. But when we did, it was always nasty. And it was disheartening. My family, to have worked with Cracker Barrel that long, and then just to have such a complete shift, it no longer felt like loyalty at all.
Yeah, and this feels like this has been a running trend, but I think that what's disappointing to me is that the whole about face after the logo, people are like, all right, we'll back off them, like they made the right decision. And in some ways they probably did, but it sounds like there's a lot of deep-rooted issues that are beneath the surface of just a logo or, we're redesigning a dining room that mean that the brand is not what it used to be. As far as your family and what you're going to do from here, I mean, there's so many American family businesses that I'm sure were just beat and battered over the head, especially in the last several years, but that felt a new resurgence of hope due to President Trump and his, kind of Made in America initiatives. Let's tariff the crap coming from overseas. Even though you're no longer in partnership with Cracker Barrel, do you have any optimism and hope that this resurgence of true Americana is going to get you guys back to where you used to be?
Well, yes and no, because we're not going to let this take us down. We're not going to let this be the end of it. But that being said, we did have to close our doors with them taking that much of their business elsewhere and then giving us no real choice on the rest of it. They wouldn't even tell us what they were putting on the new game.
So,
sorry.
Right. I totally understand.
I'm not trying to be dramatic.
Well, listen, you have every right to be dramatic because this is your family's business. I think everybody understands that. Like, this isn't a small thing. This is your entire life, and that's why I think it's so important that people understand, and not even just in this specific case of Cracker Barrel, but just on a larger scope, what happens when you take away somebody's family business or the livelihood that they depend on and that they've built for generations. It's not just about the money coming in, it's about the legacy. And when you rip that away from somebody and you leave them with no option, it's, understandably a very emotional thing. And you're not the only family that's experiencing it. I mean, there's so many, not even in the production side of it, people that are farmers and ranchers. It's like you pull the rug out from underneath somebody, they're depending on someone, you take it away, and there's a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness there. But I think that, the American consumer is rooting for people like you and family businesses like yours. And I think that's why it's so important that they see the face behind it. It's not just, oh, this company's closing or this company's getting this from overseas. Like, it has a real human impact, and what you're sharing is so important.
Truly, truly. That being said, we did have to auction off everything over the summer in order to keep from going bankrupt. Between not getting paid on time, not being able to make like real production because of that, like whenever they cut that 80-ish% off, like that was that. So we had to auction off, about 56 years worth of memories and all the equipment that we used to make the games. It's sad. It's sad. We're hoping to come back with something that that's our own, and we'll just kind of start from scratch as far as that goes. But as far as like what was originally there, like that's no more.
Right. Well, I think we can all understand how difficult that must be for you, but I do know that there is certainly a place in this marketplace where people are yearning for family businesses and true craftsmanship. That's something that you can't just mass produce and give to somebody else. I mean, there's heart and there's soul behind it. And there are so many American consumers on the left and the right, honestly, that are consumers of what you guys are doing and the legacy that you still have, regardless of if you faced a hiccup. But is there anything else that you want to tell my audience just overall about what it's like for American family businesses, something that you'd like them to know that maybe they're not aware of?
Support your small businesses.
100%.
Support your small businesses. Like we've always cared about that, but I mean, this has just been such an eye-opening experience. Just take care of America first. That's really all there is to it, and be intentional about it.
Right. Well, and this is a totally off subject, but it's like just something that's been kind of percolating in my mind as you guys are talking. I don't know how familiar you guys are with Marcus Lemonis, but I feel like you guys would be the perfect project for somebody like him.
Oh, we need to look into that.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Marcus is going to be on my show in a couple of weeks. He's revamping Bed Bath & Beyond. And he's done a lot for a lot of, family businesses and American businesses, and it's something that he's truly passionate about. So I make no promises, but this is definitely something that I'm going to put in his ear, because, listen, we can't lose our American businesses and we can't lose our American craftsmanship, because that is at our soul, the fabric of who we are as a country. I think we make things the best, and I know President Trump is certainly passionate about that as well. So we'll stay in touch with you guys. We wish you all the best. I'm so sorry for everything that you've gone through, but I don't think this is the end. I think that this is a new start, and I'll be in touch with you guys. And we really appreciate you sharing your story. I know that it can't be easy.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our story.
Absolutely.
Get it out.
Thanks so much.
Absolutely, guys. Well, God bless you, and all the best to you, and I hope something amazing comes your way, and I'm sure it will.
Thank you. Thank you, Tomi.
Thank you, guys. God bless you.
Following this interview with Andrea and Alex Kraft, Cracker Barrel reached out to Tomi Lahren is Fearless to provide a statement in response, offering clarification on their perspective. Quote, "We deeply valued the long history of partnership we had with Qualls & Sons Novelties and would have welcomed the chance to continue sourcing entirely from them. Unfortunately, they could not meet our supply needs, so we partnered with a different family business in Georgia to ensure our tradition of the peg game continues. We would be open to exploring ways to also resume a partnership with Qualls & Sons Novelties in the future." End quote.
All right, folks, that does it for this special episode of Tomi Lahren is Fearless. If I could just reiterate anything that they said there is, I know sometimes it's easy to go get the cheapest thing that you can find on Amazon from China, but these things matter to American family businesses and to families whose legacies have been building and creating things in the U.S., employing Americans. And it's so important to our economy, but also just to our sense of country that we support those that are working so hard to build things here, make things here, and employ people here. It's just an important message. So please don't forget that. Make sure you catch full episodes of this show on Outkick and Fox Nation. Also, please like and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Tomi Lahren is Fearless. From Nashville, God bless and take care. Hey, thanks for watching. For more of my hottest takes, must-see conversations, and of course, my final thoughts, click right here. And don't forget to subscribe. Just click right here so you never miss a beat. I will be here every weekday, and I hope you'll join me.